Being a woman in the middle of your life story is not a descent into irrelevance or this dark, lonely place to be. It's not a time in your life where you go to disappear or shrink or go silent. Being a woman in your midlife is the moment the veil thins. It's the revelation. It's the moment a woman begins to feel things she can't ignore. The restlessness, the dissatisfaction that shows up in the middle of your beautifully curated life. It's when you start to notice the world looking past you, talking over you, dismissing your wisdom, forgetting your story. It's when your beauty, your worth, your relevance suddenly feels like they're up for debate. Not because anything about you has diminished, but because the culture we were raised in only ever knew how to praise a woman when she is silent and in service. But this cannot be all there is. For years, we have been told the lie. Be good and gracious and grateful. To parade ourselves for the male gaze and approval, this is how you will be valued. This is how you will be seen. But in midlife, something shifts. The lie begins to crack and the spell begins to break. Because you notice the two choices women are handed. One, performance to prove your worth. Work harder, be agreeable, be exceptional, especially if you're a Black woman. Two, shrink. Make yourself smaller, quiet, less demanding, less visible, so you don't rock the boat. Midlife is the moment you realize that both of these are cages. And that's when the veil thins. That's when it drops. You start to see the truth beneath decades of fairy tale conditionings. The very lie I unpacked in my latest video, the fairy tale was a lie. You're no longer domesticated by the stories that once shaped us, and you're no longer who the world taught you to be. Midlife is the moment the spell breaks because you're finally waking up and remembering. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Marjorie, founder of the Emergent Women Collective, a space for women standing in the threshold of who they were and who they're becoming. If you're new here, I want to invite you to please like this video and subscribe so that you can see more of these videos as they come out on a weekly basis and more women can find this work. So I want to share with you my first unraveling that happened when I was 40. And it forced me into a kind of rebirth that I wasn't prepared for. And I've shared this story throughout some other videos, and so I won't get into it here. But that experience cracked me open. And then 15 years later, late 2024, my life split open again, and this time a lot more subtly. Like something deep within me had decided, you can't keep living this old story. And I was finding that what I had been building, it stopped working. And this was relationships, this was business, this was even in location. I was over functioning. I was exhausted. I was shrinking inside a version of myself that no longer felt true and wasn't meant for me or the times that we're currently in. The more everything fell apart, the more something deeper came into focus. So my exhaustion wasn't the problem, it was the symptom. It wasn't me that was failing, although that's how it felt. The real issue was the story I had been taught to live by. Most of us don't build our lives from our deepest desires. We build them from conditioning, from the fairy tales, from the church pews, from our families, from the culture, from society, right? We were raised inside a lie so old and so familiar, we didn't even notice it was forming us, telling us you will be chosen for all the good things in life when you are agreeable, when you are compliant, and oh, and when you can compromise. And being chosen is where your value begins. Chosen by a husband, chosen by that job, chosen by what society expects from you, from a little girl all the way up to a woman. And it's what I call the bride archetype that I shared in my previous video. It's a woman trained to wait, to accommodate, to build her life around being selected romantically, professionally, socially. And it doesn't matter if there is no prince in sight because the conditioning isn't about the man, it's about the pattern. Waiting for the job to validate you, waiting for someone to recognize your leadership, waiting for a partner to make life easier, waiting for permission to rest, create, change, or want more. I'm sorry. Stop it. Stop that. The dog. Stop gnawing on your fingernails. So by midlife, these lies, they start to crumble. And you feel it. You feel it emotionally, the resentment, the loneliness, the grief of self-abandonment. You feel it psychologically, the questioning of every belief you inherited. You feel it somatically in our bodies, the exhaustion, the nervous system on constant high alert. And you feel it spiritually, that sense that your soul is tapping the glass, trying to get your attention. Hello. Midlife doesn't create these collapses and crises, as they say. It reveals it. And when the veil drops, at first, at first, it looks like your life is rearranging itself from the outside. Relationships are shifting, work is changing, the ground is, moving beneath you. But the real drop is happening in here. When the veil drops, it doesn't feel like clarity at first. It feels like disruption. Because the truth arrives a lot of times by shaking loose everything that is no longer for you. You start noticing things you used to tolerate. You can't tolerate it no more. Conversations that drain you, you just can't have them anymore. Places you used to go, they just don't feel comfortable. And our bodies feel it before our minds start to catch up. That sigh, that heavy sigh you didn't know you were holding, the tightness in your chest after saying yes to something when you wanted to say no. and then the fatigue from doing it, right? But from doing too much on top of that. But from just being someone you're no longer willing to be. The moment you realize the life you built, even the good parts, were shaped by expectations you never got to question. When the veil drops, it can feel overwhelming, but there's a rhythm in this awakening, right? And it unfolds in three stages. The first is this disillusionment. Now, this is the crack in the story. This is where the fairy tale falls apart. This is what I was starting to see. The old strategies, the old ways of doing things, they stop working. Restlessness and grief, they were starting to rise to the surface. Nothing worked, nothing fit anymore. Then comes this time of discernment. You start to notice the conditioning. You start to see the code in the matrix. You start to see beyond the bullshit, the noise and the distractions, and you know it for what it is. You can see it for what it is. Your intuition is now beep, 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 right? The intuition that had been silenced for years, it's now coming online and becomes louder. And then you begin asking questions that you've avoided, right? What do I want? What do I know? What am I no longer willing to carry? Then, as you go through this and you start to get the answers, things become a little bit clearer. Then comes devotion. Now, this is a turning point. This is where you choose yourself. And this is not in theory, this is in practice. You take time for yourself each day to get connected with that intuition that is now coming up. You enjoy being in company with yourself because now you can hear your thoughts, hear your intuition, appreciate your own inner knowing. You practice a form of personal evolutionary work that strengthens your instincts and allows yourself to feel, which is a lot of us tend to want to avoid. Because when we start to feel, then it becomes real. These stages are not linear either they're spiral, right? They deepen and they return, right? And they are the exact journey that prepares a woman to become dangerous in the best possible way. So here you are at this midpoint in the story of your life. You have lived long enough to see the gaps between the lies and the truth. We are at a point in time where we value the time that we have left, and we're not willing to waste it living a life that isn't ours. Our lived experiences expose the fantasy, and we're not going to play that game anymore. Your body is telling you everything you need to know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? But particularly our nervous system, right? It's sending us messages from all of those years that we've wreaked havoc on it. And it starts to say no more. No more people pleasing, no more pretending that this life that you've built in survival is the life that you want to live in sovereignty. You can't do that. Then your soul begins calling you back. Oh, this is so romantic. This is the romantic part for me. It's like your soul taps you on the shoulder and it whispers, everything you built might have been necessary, but now it's time to build what is true. This is when your inner knowing, your map, is what I call it, becomes louder than the expectations that shaped you. Your soul wants conversations with depth, companionship with passion, and love with resonance. You recognize that being chosen was the biggest lie of all. This is the most painful revelation. I feel like I've spent over 10 years wanting to be chosen. Well, actually, this has been all my life, but just in this past 10 years, like that this relationship would define me in some way, that the perfect job, the perfect career, the perfect body, right? And I realized that I was building not a life, but I was building a resume for worthiness. I was trying to be wanted, trying to be kept, trying to be good enough. But now at this point in our lives, the cost, the cost is too high. My voice, my creativity, my joy, and most importantly, when I coming at this point in my life, we are all on the cusp of a significant energetic shift. And as we enter this shift, we realize that we cannot return to the woman that we once were. And we all feel that. We can't go back. Even though the new life hasn't fully revealed itself, right? Even though there is so much uncertainty. And believe me, I know this entire year has been the year of uncertainty for me if I had a theme. But I went from building a business that wouldn't click to designing a life where my purpose is embedded and lived. And it moved me to the point, not just emotionally, spiritually, but even physically, I changed cities. And it wasn't to start over, but it was to jump timelines. This is what I call the threshold. It may feel like a rearranging. It may feel like restlessness. It may even feel some discomfort in it, but this is the awakening. And this is where something unmistakable begins to rise in us. A quiet force and a refusal to keep living inside that old story. This is where the dangerous woman begins to emerge. Not dangerous because she's harmful, but dangerous because she can't be contained anymore. She can't be managed. She can't be shaped by the lies that once governed our life. She is the woman who has walked through those three stages: disillusionment, discernment, and devotion, and has realized there's no returning to the woman she was before. Her emergence doesn't happen all at once, though. It unfolds in layers, the very same layers that I will be teaching inside the Dangerous Woman program opening January 6th, 2026. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the video. Where she recognizes in her life that she has been playing a role. She begins to see that, this performance that she has been putting on, the bride, the good woman, the good wife, the chosen one, right? The woman who tethered her worth to approval and achievement, she sees the cost of performing a life that was never truly hers. And then the veil, right? The veil starts to drop. She recognizes that, you know, this old story and the strategies is slipping away, and the truth is revealed, not through just this aha moment, but through a breaking open. And then comes this inner marriage. This is the turning point where you stop searching for rescue outside of yourself, where you learn how to integrate your inner masculine, your boundaries, and your capacity to act with your feminine instincts, your wisdom, your intuition, right? What does devotion and commitment and loyalty look like to yourself? And then the dangerous woman arises, much like the wild woman archetype. This is your reclamation. This is your raw, instinctual, embodied power, your eros, not just sexual, but a creative life force that fuels your truth, your art, and your leadership. You bring disruption, not because you're chaotic. This isn't this isn't like, being chaotic, but it's because you refuse to abandon yourself ever again. This is how we bring disruption when women refuse to abandon themselves ever again. Then enters a new leadership where you lead from love, from presence, from coherence, where you embody cultural repair simply by showing up as your whole self, where you become a mirror for other women who are ready to rise. And all of this is in preparation for the great remembering of 2026. Now, a lot of you've heard me talk about this. Not as the woman as you once were, but as the woman you were always meant to become. This is legacy made flesh. So, what's happening to you or inside of you right now is not random, and it's not a phase, and it's not just midlife. It is part of something bigger. And there's a global shift that women across the world are feeling at the same time. We're standing inside a cultural threshold. For the first time in generations, millions of women are waking up in unison. We're questioning the stories that we inherited. We're shedding the roles that broke us. And we're refusing to live another year inside a life that silences our truth and our stories. This is generational, it is archetypal, it is planetary. And the cosmos is echoing what our bodies already know. Now, I'm not an evolutionary astrologist, but I understand that Pluto is here to, it's dismantling old systems, and Uranus is shaking things up for us that we can't carry with us moving forward. The global instability is exposing every structure that depended on women staying quiet and compliant and small and exhausted. The world we were trained to survive is not the world we're meant to lead. And so the veils are dropping, not just in you, but around the entire feminine lineage. We are remembering ourselves. We are remembering the power of choosing ourselves instead of waiting to be chosen. Women are no longer domesticated by the stories that defined us. We're rewriting the myths. And 2026, going into 2027, the next several years, this is not just a year or several years, it's an opening. It's a turning of the feminine tide. It's a moment where women stop living in survival and begin leading from remembrance. It is you finding your voice. Your awakening is part of this larger evolution. So you're rising in rhythm with something that's universal, something that's ancestral, and something that is unstoppable. This is the great remembering. And it cannot be met at this time from a place of urgency. It has to be met from a place of honesty and stillness and presence. So here's the first steps forward from this place as we begin to wrap up. You have to acknowledge what is no longer working, right? Say it plainly, name it, identify it, the roles, the relationships, the patterns that feel too tight on you that you're wearing, right? Naming the truth breaks the illusion, okay? Then you need to stop overriding your body. Your body always knows before your mind is willing to admit it. So if your chest is tightening, if your shoulders are rising, if your breath is shortened, and this is your inner wisdom speaking to you. The veil drops through your body. So start listening there. Then I want you to create pockets of stillness. Now, it doesn't have to be hours of meditation, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. 5 minutes where you stop tending to everyone else's needs and turn towards your own stillness. This is how truth enters. Then let the grief come. The more you spend time in stillness, the more you will start to feel. We have all suffered loss. And as we all going through this spiritual awakening, the mourning part of it takes this to a deeper level. So it's okay to grieve the woman you had to be in order to be acceptable and loving. And that got you to this particular point. Let the tears come. Grief is the doorway into your next becoming. And then practice one act of self-honesty each day. This is not self-improvement. This is self-honesty. The simple truth spoken to yourself. When this happens, I want you to even record it, right? I want you to start putting voice notes together, right? because this begins to reorder your life around what is real, not what is expected. And when you record these truths, you can play them back to remind you when you start to believe the hype again and not yourself. Okay? So these are the first steps out of this old story and into the woman that you're remembering. This prepares the ground for what is next. So let me just tie this up for you in a neat little bow. We were raised to believe that the fairy tales ends with weddings and with a kiss and with a man who makes it all make sense, right? But that was never truly our story. Our story is a sovereignty arc, right? It's a returning. It is a reclamation of the women we were before the world told us who to be. This is the work of belonging to yourself again. And this is the return to instinct, to clarity, to wisdom, feminine wisdom. This is the path of the remembered woman. And if you've been following this journey with me, you know that this is video 2 of my 5-part series, When a Woman Belongs to Herself. And video 1 that I published last week, The Fairy Tale is a Lie. I exposed the first lie women were taught through male-centered fairy tales. And today, video 2, I just walked us through the veil that drops at midlife and how this coming of age story shows us all the cracks, right? So next week, we're going to be exploring the inner marriage, the union within yourself. What does devotion, commitment, and loyalty look like to yourself? So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And all of this is leading up to opening the Dangerous Woman portal in January 2026. This is a 6-week container that will be peeling back these illusions that we've inherited. And we're going to be rewriting these patriarchal stories that have shaped us, that will help you to return to the sacred identity beneath it all so that you can create and design the life that you want for yourself. Lead from a place of authenticity and love, from a place that is truly deservingly yours. So please, I want you to understand that if you're at this threshold moment right now, you don't have to navigate this space alone. I want to invite you to join us inside my school community. That's SKOOL, the Emergent Women Collective. I'm gathering women who are walking the same path, women who are shedding that old script and learning to lead, live, and love from their inner knowing. So I will make sure and put a link to get you to that community in the description box below. So until next time, I am Marjorie, and this is the work of remembering who you were before the world told you who to be.